All right, so we have a great presentation today. So far, we have uh, registrants from across the US and around the world, so I appreciate that. This is a very exciting conversation, cover songs in the United States in the MMA era. As you know, the Music Modernization Act passed in 2018, and the Music Modernization Act established. By the way, my name is Dae Bogan. I'm the head of third-party partnerships at MLC, and I work on a number of different projects around innovation and supporting our members and collaborating with music industry entities to create features and services to empower our members and various stakeholders. So this conversation around cover songs is not only for our members, but really a conversation that the entire music industry should have, as we are now in this new MMA era of cover song licensing. Still, the MMA passed in 2018, Music Modernization Act, and established the MLC, which is the Mechanical Licensing Collective. We sit in between digital music providers in the United States for interactive streaming and digital downloads. These services pay us for the streaming musical works in their platforms. We then account to and pay out publishers, administrators, self-administered writers, and ex-US mechanical CMOs. So if you're a member of a mechanical society in a different territory, through that membership, you may be receiving royalties from the MLC. The MLC is the exclusive administrator of the new blanket digital mechanical license. We'll be talking more about that later. And the MLC is the only organization that can collect and distribute these royalties paid pursuant to this new blanket license to rights holders. So that's the MLC. We're a nonprofit organization. Our membership is free. 100% of the royalties that we collect and account to rights holders is paid out to those rights holders. We do not have a commission or administration fee on top of those collections. So that's the quick overview. So I'd like to introduce my co-host and collaborator, Aaron Green from Easy Song, to come on screen here.
Thanks, Dae. Just on behalf of the Easy Song team, Dae, we want to thank you and the MLC team for letting us participate in this. This is something that we do all day long, every business day. We talk music rights and clearances and all types of needs from all walks of life, from DIY musicians to record label execs to anybody that really needs help clearing a composition or any master rights. So joined today, we have our team of managers who help run this machine here. My co-founder is Mark Mickle. He is the president of our company and the director of technology. Mark and I are actually childhood friends from elementary school, and we started out as Legacy Productions, where we were mobile recording like a studio, and we worked with schools and churches from 13 different states, and we handled music licensing, and specifically mechanical licensing for CD fundraisers. So it's been a long ride, but it's been a lot of fun here. Also joined by us is Tim Cosell. He's our director of operations. Tim does a lot of things. He's a jack of all trades for us. He's also helps with our custom licensing division and our whole service team. He manages all the employees, very valuable asset to our company. Also today, we have Patrick Stewart. He's our director of marketing. He's also our graphic design artist, and he also helps run our custom licensing team that I'll go into here momentarily. He's another jack of all trades, and we're very lucky to have him. And last but not least, we have Cherise Ferniton, and she is our director of data and accounting. And she handles everything from payroll to paying publishers to accounting. And she also helps in our custom licensing division as well. So we're very happy to have Cherise here too. So like I said before, kind of an overview of our company. We are the best way to describe easysong.com is that we're kind of like your Swiss Army knife, your one-stop shop for anything that has to do with music rights and legalities and clearances. So so number one, we do assist with mechanical licensing, and this is all under compulsory law, which my colleagues are going to go into in a little bit here. That's under our Clear Cover Song portal in the middle. We also handle custom licensing that I mentioned before. And custom licensing is anytime a special permission is needed on behalf of a songwriter administration or a publisher or a record label where you want to clear master rights. So this deals with anything from video synchronization licensing to book print rights, to live stage and theatrical rights, to films, advertising, anything where the rights holders need to give special clearance. So that's under our custom licensing division. We've also expanded our services where we also handle copywriting services to actually register your original compositions with the Library of Congress to work with the US Copyright Office. So helping clients secure those protections are a really fun new endeavor that we've launched over the past year. That's been going really well. Also, we handle publishing administration for anyone that needs brokerage work for their original compositions in their catalog, and basically to help them broker any incoming licensing requests or just general consultation about what to do and how to protect their rights. That's been big for us too. Also, you will see below here, it says Sell on Giddy. We are creating a new music streaming app. It's a unique streaming app. And you can check out more information on giddy.com. And this is also links to our website. Also, we also work with vendors to help with backing tracks or to help produce replica cover recordings for special projects like film or advertising. And we'll go into master rights clearances in a little bit, but this is a very big cog in our machine where we help people actually make audio. And we have an array of vendors that are just fantastic to work with too. So, and overall we have membership services. You can check out more on easysong.com. But yeah, these are our services, and we also have a phone number in the upper right-hand corner of our main screen, so we can talk music rights or questions 40 hours a week, Monday through Friday. And we have a fantastic team, and we have a call center, and we're not talking just live chat or email, but if you actually want to call someone and talk to a real human about rights, we help out with that, and these are all free services. So we just like to be a friend to the artist and independent music community. So it's a lot of fun. We were very blessed to have a great team here. So next we're gonna go, Mark is gonna go into cover song fundamentals.
Thanks, Aaron. So music copyright is protection for your music. Okay, just like we have laws about your home, your physical property where you live, we also have laws about your songs, your intellectual property, where your ideas live. And it's a good thing because you think about your home, how would you feel if I just walked up, opened the front door, went in, opened your cupboards, got some Doritos, opened your fridge, grabbed a Coke, lie down on the couch and turn on your big screen TV and started watching ESPN there? How would you feel about it? Would that feel very good? No, I wouldn't feel so good. And then what if I get up off the couch and grab your big screen TV and I just kind of walk to the front door, open it up, prop open the screen door, and I carry your big screen TV out and load it up into my van and drive away? That wouldn't be so good, right? So just like we have laws to protect what people can do in your home, we also have laws to protect what people can do with your music. And this is near and dear to my heart. It's what got us started in this business in the first place. There's great value in what you create, and we're really interested in helping you protect that. Well, protection begins with copyright, and copyright is automatic, but it's recommended that you register your copyrights with the United States Copyright Office. It's a little more official way of handling that. And when you do that, the copyright law will take effect and protect your original works. There are 6 rights established in the law. These are things that only the creator or somebody that they give permission to can do with the music. Those include reproduction, making CDs, vinyl, creating derivative works, changing lyrics or melody, distributing, actually handing out those CDs and vinyl, or distributing digitally over Spotify, Amazon Music, through one of your favorite distributors, CD Baby or SoundDrop. 4, perform publicly. Go stand on the street, put out your hat and start playing a song, or on the radio, public performance. Displaying publicly includes lyrics, music notes. Think about sometimes you go to church, they might show the lyrics up there on the screen. A novelist might want to include a special lyric in their novel. And then digitally transmitting, that would include any sort of digital audio transmission, such as streams, downloads, internet, and terrestrial radio. So there are all these protections in place for you, saying what other people can do, well, more specifically cannot do with your music. So just like you don't want someone going into your house and starting a remodel project on your kitchen, or putting up new wallpaper in the dining room, you might not want people going in and making changes to your music, or taking it and copying it and giving it away to their friends. So those are the 6 protections, really important. And the way this translates into very real, important dollars for the creator is that you can give permission and in effect lend out your exclusive rights. Say you got akin to maybe having a 50-acre property, you set up 50 tiny houses, and now you're gonna start an Airbnb business, right? So your music career is your property, your songs are your little houses, and then you get to decide who you're gonna hand out the keys to for a little fee, right? So in giving permission, the process of giving permission and getting permission is called music licensing. And that's where all your opportunity lies as a creator to really make money and build a career as a musician. And my colleague, Tim, our director of operations, will talk about licensing next. But before we get to that, just want to tell you what a cover song is. When we started our music licensing business, we did only cover song licensing. And at the time, I'm our web developer. I put up a page on our website and it said, clear cover songs. And my dad called me and he said, what's a cover song? I don't know what that is. And I, being in the music business for so long, I just kind of assumed everybody knew, but no, it's okay to not know. That's all right. A cover song is whenever you record or perform yourself playing a song that somebody else wrote. So you or your band doing a song that somebody else wrote. A phono record, got this up here on the slide, so I'll just address this before I hand it over to Tim. When licensing, one unit of licensing is called a phono record. That's just a term that comes out of the licensing, the music copyright law. So it's good to address that as well. So if you were to make 100 vinyl, press 100 vinyl, that'd be 100 phono records. So music copyright is protection. 6 exclusive rights is what you or someone you give permission to can do with your music if you're the owner. Cover song is you playing or recording yourself doing somebody else's song. And a phono record is one licensing unit. And with that, I'll turn it over to Tim, who's going to go into a little more detail on music licensing, cover song licensing.
Yes, cover song licensing. Again, thanks Dae and the MLC for inviting us to participate here. Such a pleasure. So what is a standard cover song license? Well, a standard cover song license, it's a form of permission to record typically a famous song written by someone else. So when we say cover song license, it usually implies the cover does not have any changes to the original song's lyrics or melody. And it's also commonly referred to as a mechanical license or a compulsory license, which we'll go into in a second here. And it's also, a compulsory license is the basis on how we run our cover song licensing service and how we as a company can actually guarantee licenses to artists who want to make a new recording of a song. So there's basically 3 types of licenses we're going to cover here. We'll start with the compulsory license. So it's a compulsory license to make and distribute phono records. And it's a US law. It can also be referred to as a mechanical license. But it's a type of license that's automatically granted by filing paperwork and taking certain steps and paying us what we call a statutory royalty rate. So basically, any song that's been previously released, you as an artist can record a version of that song and release your version of it to the public. that's one. It's really meant to foster creativity and kind of develop artists by giving them the opportunity to build a fan base by using well-known songs and help them kind of build their career. 2, we have a voluntary or a direct license. So this is something that's going to be negotiated with the rights holders directly. You can work out special terms, discounted royalty rates, and any other sort of unique parameters you want in that, where both parties then would opt into an agreement to release the end product there. And then there's blanket licensing, which is a license that allows for a pool of works or a catalog to be licensed all at once. So you're not negotiating with both a compulsory and a voluntary direct license. You're negotiating each song or sending statements for each song individually, where a blanket license is going to include an entire catalog of works. So with compulsory licensing, and this is something I've personally been dealing with since 2015 now, when I took a job here at Easy Song Licensing. It was them at Easy Song. And what we call our cover song licensing, there are limitations. So it's not like you can do whatever you want with anybody else's work. No, that's not how it works. So basically, when we're talking about a compulsory license, it doesn't cover any sort of adaptation or derivative work. So you can't change the lyrics, you can't translate the lyrics, you can't alter the lyrics. Even one word change then constitutes derivative work. That's not covered under compulsory license. It's really intended for you to re-record the song as it was originally written. So turning a reggae song into a rock song or a pop song into a metal song. I'm sure we've all seen those types of things out there, where you get a Britney Spears song and they make a super heavy metal version of that. But the lyrics are the same and the fundamental melody is recognizable. Compulsory law also is only intended for audio only products. So digital downloads, CDs, cassettes, vinyl records, and all of that is intended to be used by the end user for private listening purposes. U.S. compulsory law is also, these compulsory licenses are also intended for U.S. distribution only. So U.S. compulsory law isn't going to cover you for distribution in any other country. Each country has its own rights collection society or mechanical licensing society that's going to be able to help with those permissions, or it would have to be with the publisher directly. And then going further, one step further, when our search team, we have a free copyright research that we offer to anybody. You can go sign up on our website, enter any song you want, and our team of humans is going to go vet that song and try to identify the composers and the publishers. One thing we always look for before we clear that for our cover song licensing service is a either US publishing representation, the writer is based in the US, or the publisher itself is based in the US. And the reason is because it's a US law, so we're really only trying to use that system if it is a US rights holder as well. Otherwise, we would have to reach out, which we do, to those international publishers and make sure it's okay and have them grant special permission in order for it to be licensed in the US. Another limitation is that any song that you want to cover or get a cover song license or compulsory license for has to have first been released either by the original writer or somebody they sold what are called first rights to. So lots of songwriters in Nashville writing for lots of different artists, but when they write a song, they're granting the first release rights to an artist then to release that song. So we always are looking for that official audio release before we're clearing anything to go through compulsory licensing as well. And then lastly, all instruments and vocals are re-recorded. So a compulsory license isn't going to grant any permissions for master audio that's used that you didn't create yourself. So no sampling. It Doesn't mean you can download whatever backing track off YouTube and use that in your new recording. That's not covered under compulsory. That's a separate license you would have to negotiate with, you know, the person who created that audio. So Dave mentioned in the beginning, the MLC is the exclusive, they handle the blanket licensing for digital streaming services, and they're the only ones who can. So there is blanket licensing available, but those are intended for the major services. And it's not, you as an artist, you know, can't get a blanket deal through the MLC to cover anything you want to do. We get that question all the time. Well, how do I just pay once for everything I want to do as an artist? And it just doesn't really work like that. There are some, you know, some more uncommon situations where we have negotiated blanket deals with a publisher for their catalog for a specific project. But outside of that, just prepare yourself that anytime you're going to do anything with a song that you don't own yourself, you're going to have to get a license for that song and each song individually. And even further, for all types of products you're going to release, whether it's video, audio, and the like. So that is compulsory law, and that is cover song licensing in a nutshell. But this extends much further because more often than not, it seems every day, you know, we have people coming to us that have changed lyrics, or it's a medley, or it's they're using a sample, or they just took a little tiny piece of this song and they wrote a completely new song around that. So now we're getting into derivative works, which are very different from cover songs. I'm gonna let Aaron take the reins here and kind of dig into derivative works.
Oh, my pleasure. Okay, so let's talk about the definition of derivative works. So derivative, anytime you change either the composition or you use audio you do not own, or anything that has to do with changing lyrics or the fundamental melody of each song is considered a derivative work. Tim alluded to this earlier, but even when you change even slight minor lyric changes or gender pronoun differences, or you change city names, or you add an extra verse of original composition to an existing copyright, that is all under the blanket term that we call derivatives. And only the rights holder, the publishing administration, can give you permission to release your song and distribute it how you see fit. I'm going to go over three main topics here that we get a lot of questions on, and I'm sure there'll be a lot in the Q&A. I'm happy to answer those too. First topic I'll talk about are medleys. Medleys, we're talking about multiple copyrights or multiple compositions that are recorded inside the same track. Okay, so for example, song A runs into song B, runs into song C, and the track ends. Okay, that's what we call a medley. So this is different versus what we call mashup use. Mashup use is when you go song A, B, C, and then you go back into song A or song B, and the track ends. Or if you're combining lyrics and a melody to a different composition and you're meshing them up, that's also considered a derivative right there. And again, only the songwriters or their administration can give those permissions in the first place. And this is what we do with custom licensing, where we work with over 11,000 different publishing entities, and we represent you to try to get your songs cleared when you are doing a derivative. One thing I do want to bring up here with medleys, it's a very hot button issue in the publishing world. Since January of 2021, when the MLC has officially started all reporting with all DSPs. So basically, in the past, before this was enacted, how you would normally deal with medleys is that we would ask the publisher, we would tell them this is exactly what copyrights are being used, and we would just tell them what distribution is taking place, what music media formats. And 9 times out of 10, they would approve, and it was just not a big deal. Post this, in the digital era here, especially with this new digital reporting, this is now a new work title. When you do a medley, it's very rare that you would just list song A as the title of the track. Most often it's song A / song B / song C, or you've created a brand new work. regardless, the publishers take this very seriously. They want to make sure, if they approve, that this new work is registered with the MLC. And only these publishers can register said new works. So this is where it gets a little muddy. This is why this is a lot of work on the publisher's perspective to go register the new works, to get it cleared and whatnot. For physical media and lots of digital download uses, this is actually much easier to get done, at least in our experiences with lots of mid and major publishers. When it comes to interactive audio streaming like Spotify, this is where it gets a little more complicated. So medleys, you cannot do compulsory law. You cannot get a standard mechanical license for that type of use, because you are technically altering a composition by adding to it. And mashups can be very tricky too, because you're combining two different compositions into the same work. But yeah, this is just something where a lot of people will give us the songwriter camps. We'll do a free copyright holder search. We'll line up the pins and see what we have to do here. And we'll go kind of back and forth with our clients to figure out what's plausible, what are certain publishers' policies, and we kind of help you walk through. But medleys are definitely outside of compulsory law. The second topic I'll bring up here are remixes. This is very popular with our clients, especially with like DJs and producers and people that want to take their own compositions or mix multiple beats or multiple master sound recordings they don't own. This is where it gets tricky, where we have to ask them, okay, also when you say the word remix in a title, that's a red flag right away. That's not eligible for compulsory. Right away, in the eyes of the publisher, that usually means there's some type of fundamental composition change to each copyright. Also, there's two sides of the permission coin. Number one is composition rights. Composition rights deal with the actual songwriter's interests. This is their actual composition, how they wrote the lyrics and or the melody involved, and that is strictly on the publishing side. We call that your music licensing oxygen. Because if the songwriters do not approve your composition changes, it doesn't matter what audio you're using, what you've re-recorded, only those songwriter camps can actually give that permission. Number two, the second coin of permission here is the master sound recording use. What audio is inside this remix? And there is someone who owns that audio. This is usually held by a record label. And this is something where major record labels charge major pricing at times. So this is something where getting other vendors or re-recording your own cover version is very key to help save on extra hassle, extra licensing costs. I'm not going to go into that too much. I'm happy to answer the Q&A on that. But yeah, master use versus composition. If you're using someone else's audio, you're also using their composition. So these are two planets of permission that you have to get cleared if you want to legally distribute a remix. And finally, what I alluded to here, we're calling samples. So samples can actually mean two different things. Once again, you can sample another master sound recording. Again, audio that you don't own. Also, sampling in the eyes of publishers can also mean you're sampling just a chorus or a verse or a few lyrics. And what we call that, if you were going to use, let's just say, a Beatles song, and you just want to use one of their verses, and you want to put that in the body of your composition, this is what we call an interpolation. You've written an original song, and there's only a small part of it is where you're using a composition you don't own. This is something where you actually have to go to the publisher to clear this. And there's third-party clearance agencies like ourselves that do this. And this is something where we have to negotiate a new work publishing split. It's your composition, which means it's a new song title, and you have new lyrics that you're introducing, and you're using an existing composition. So this has to be negotiated, and it has to be approved by the publisher, by your music licensing oxygen. And so both sides of permission can be tough to figure out what door to knock down, how to do this kind of thing. And regardless, all three of these points are outside of compulsory law. So these are derivatives. There's more derivatives, like Tim mentioned. There's translations, for example. That is actually, that again, is it a close translation? Has that original songwriter or publisher released their own translation or approved of another translation? And they could say there's an exclusivity on one translation for my English copyright, for example. So there's a lot of stuff to navigate here. It can get pretty complicated. So, but yeah, anytime, we're always happy to chat about any type of derivative use there. So next, I'm going to have Patrick. He's going to go into how cover song licensing works in the US.
All right, thanks, Aaron. Now that you understand what a cover song license or cover song is, hopefully, how do you go about obtaining that license, or how does the license work in the US? To get that mechanical license, which again pays royalty back to the copyright holder, or usually on behalf of the publisher that owns the song on behalf of the writer, you can either contact the publisher directly, work with them, or use a third-party service like EasySong. Basically, to obtain that mechanical license, we need to let the publisher know what is being distributed. So we start by sending a notice of intent, which includes all the relevant information about the release. And then a month after the release, we follow up with a statement of account and a royalty payment. Common question we get a lot of times is, when do you need to obtain a license for this type of use? And for physical, the best answer is to obtain the license after the recording is complete, but before any distribution has taken place. So once you've finalized your song, you've got it mastered, and you know the final timing of the song, that's one of the key pieces of relevant information that we have to include on our notice to the publisher. You can come to us or any other service, and we obtain that mechanical license for you in 1 to 2 days, and then get you on your way. Once you have that, you're good to go and can start distributing your song. For physical, it's pretty straightforward. You license the number of copies you're making. So if you're making a batch of 500 CDs, you obtain a license for 500 CDs. You're going to pay that statutory royalty rate of 9 1/10 cents per unit, and you pay that to the publisher. That gets the license. Same thing for any other physical format. So obviously cassettes and vinyl are popular these days. We also license for a variety of other formats like reel-to-reel tape, music boxes, and even piano rolls, or something we get requested every now and then. Digital downloads work pretty much the same way. It's the same statutory 9 1/10 cent royalty rate. The kicker there, obviously, is you don't know how many downloads you're going to get. So the best way to go about that is you, again, license for a specific quantity. Most of the time, a lot of our customers kind of match the number of CDs they're licensing, but that can be kind of a case-by-case basis. You work with your distributor then to track your actual downloads. CD Baby and a lot of the other big distributors provide you with a monthly report that shows your downloads. You just keep track of that. And if you get close to running out of your download licenses, you can come back to us. And just again, in 1 or 2 business days, we can obtain a new license for you. So we call that a re-licensing your same work. Streaming, on the other hand, it now has changed. It used to be a similar process to the digital downloads, but that is now covered by the blanket license. So agencies like us do not handle that. The one rare case is if you're streaming on some kind of site or your own personal streaming service that you've created or something like that that is not covered with a blanket license, then it would require still direct permission from the publisher. So again, that's something you can either work with the publisher directly, or for us, that would go through our custom licensing service where we actually have to reach out to the publisher and work with them to get permission and a rate and things like that. The last thing I can tackle here for you is the live performances. A public performance license is required anytime you're playing a cover song at a venue or any kind of live performance. The difference with that is the public performance license is generally obtained by the music venue. So wherever you're playing, it's their responsibility to obtain that public performance license. Sometimes you might run into a music venue that does not allow cover songs, which I know is a thing here in Minneapolis. There's a notorious bar that does not allow any cover songs. That's because they do not obtain their public performance licenses. Most do, and then that's just not something you need to keep track of. Same with radio play. That's considered a public performance, so it's up to the station to obtain that license. If on a rare case you do want to perform at one of those clubs that doesn't have the ASCAP or BMI or CSAC license in the United States, then you can work with one of those agencies directly. You're usually, once you sign up with them, you're given a manager that works with you, and they can help you, guide you to obtain that public performance license for your performance. But 99 times out of 100, you're going to be covered by that public performance license that the club has. Then there's video, which is a whole nother beast in its own. So I'm going to turn it back over to Aaron so he can tackle that one for you.
Thanks, Patrick. Yep. So video synchronization licensing is probably the most common question that we get asked on a daily basis, and we're always happy to tackle these. But compulsory does not cover any type of video sync use, technically by law. Now, when it comes to you producing a video on YouTube, for example, if there's many different ways this can go. Number one, if you're producing a video of what we call user-generated content, and this is something where you're just performing the song, a copyright, and let's just say it's not a derivative, it's not a parody, and you own all your own instrumentals and vocals, you're performing it live. This is what we call user-generated use. Now, there's a blanket deal that most, if not all, major publishers belong to on YouTube, where they have a service where they can claim copyrights and they can put ads on your channel. And this is a way that they kind of avoid having to issue and give out video sync licensing with certain songwriter camps. And this is something where at any time they can also take your video down. They can put any type of ad that they want on your YouTube channel, or they could block you from certain countries, or they could block the video entirely. This YouTube blanket deal is not the same thing as your own personal video synchronization license. Only the rights holder, only the publisher can give you a video sync license. That's a custom negotiation between you, AKA the licensee, and the licensor, which is the publisher or songwriter camp. So YouTube is kind of on its own magical island where this is how so much of the world accesses music or accesses visual and video content. So there's a lot that floats around YouTube that gets unnoticed. There's a lot that gets flagged. YouTube actually has its own filter, its own system to alert any songwriter camp or any publisher that has these blanket deals in place. And they have the option to claim and place a copyright claim. If you look inside the description, if you ever did a cover video and you see all the information of who's claimed what, and you didn't put it there, well, they did. In a lot of ways, this is very good news because your video didn't get taken down. The bad news is any types of ads that come up on your YouTube channel, they're earning all monetization from said ads. Once again, if you wanted to secure your own video sync license, for YouTube or for any video streaming platform, this is something where we actually have to go to the publisher and we have to negotiate this up front. And there usually comes a term and there usually comes a price when it comes to this. So I'll answer more in the Q&A here. But yeah, YouTube, this could easily be a full nother topic here with the MLC. But video synchronization licensing, very common. This is something where you don't have to be afraid. Ask us any question that you want about this, and I'll go back to the Q&A here. So after that, I'm gonna reintroduce Dae, and he's gonna break down how cover song royalties happen.
Thank you so much, guys. This has been abundance of information so far. So I hope our viewers are taking notes. Again, we're trying to crash a lot of information into a 1 hour period. Remember, this recording will be up on our YouTube channel, so you'll be able to go back and kind of revisit some of the different sections and also ask questions in those comments. So let me dive into this royalties matrix here. What this is showing you is the grant of rights, which we covered at the top of this webinar. We talked about copyright and the bundle of 6 exclusive rights, which is the right to reproduce, the right to distribute, the right to prepare derivative works, the right to public performance, the right to public display, and then the digital performance right and sound recordings. So those are your bundle of rights that a copyright owner is entitled to when they own the copyright in a musical work. Then there are royalties associated with the monetization and exploitation of that musical work. And we talked about performance, live performance, and we also talked about phono records and different types of audio files where mechanical royalties are earned. So I'm going to walk us through this chart really quick to make sure that you understand for each type of use, what are the grants of rights in regards to a cover song? What are the royalties that are earned in those cover songs? Who collects those royalties? And then who are the payees for those royalties? So starting at the top, we have physical. And physical is vinyl, CD, cassette. So a cover song that is going to appear on a CD or a vinyl, the artist must secure these grant of rights. So that includes the right to reproduce and the right to distribute that musical work in a phono record, which is basically a mechanical license. And we mentioned earlier, there's different types of ways of acquiring that license. There's the compulsory scheme, which is basically you automatically can use the work as long as you're following the compulsory scheme, which is to basically account to and pay the rights holder. There's a direct license where you can actually go directly to a copyright owner and negotiate the grant of these rights for physical. This has been happening for many years with record labels signing artists who are also songwriters and granting those rights in their recording contract, sometimes for a royalty rate that's less than the statutory royalty rate. And so that's the grant of rights. The royalties that are associated with physical is mechanical royalties. For each CD, for each vinyl, for each digital download, there's a royalty for that. Currently it's 9.1 cents. So for each unit, and those royalties are collected by music publishers or for self-administered songwriters if you don't have a publisher. So music publishers generally collect those mechanical royalties for physical goods, and then they pay out the writers associated with those songs. On the digital streaming side, so this is interactive streaming, DSPs that provide interactive streaming in the United States. You need three types of rights associated with a cover song on interactive streaming. You have the right to reproduce and the right to distribute the musical work. And then there's also a public performance right, or the right to perform publicly that musical work. So those three rights are granted through the process of distributing a stream. Now in the United States, we have the blanket license now, right? So that's the MLC. We exclusively administer the blanket license. What that means for artists is that you don't need to directly secure the right to reproduce or the right to distribute a musical work if you're only distributing to a DSP, because the DSP is operating under the United States blanket mechanical license, which is what was created by the passing of MMA. And then there's a right to publicly perform, which is licensed to the DSPs from PROs. I'm sorry, I'm gonna go back here, PROs. So there's two types of royalties that flow to payees from digital streaming. That includes mechanical royalties and performance royalties. The MLC collects mechanical royalties, and PROs such as ASCAP, BMI, CSEC, and GMR collects the performance royalties. And then they pay those royalties out to music publishers and writers. Writers, by the way, means songwriters, composers, lyricists, and so forth. Then there's the digital download. The digital download does not have a performance right, but it does have the right to reproduce and right to distribute. So those rights have to be secured in order to again, prepare the digital download. We talked about the three types of licensing schemes. Again, the compulsory licensing scheme, the direct licensing scheme, or a blanket. The blanket does not apply here for individual artists, but the compulsory license does, which is obviously something that Easy Song handles, and you can also do it yourself. The royalties that are associated with digital downloads includes mechanical royalties. There could be a performance royalty. It really depends on some other factors. The MLC and music distributors receive digital download mechanical royalties for some services, and then some services that do downloads have direct mechanical licenses with publishers. And again, that goes back again to the three types of schemes. So with digital downloads, we have the blanket licensing scheme, but there's also a direct licensing scheme. So some DSPs have direct licenses with publishers, so they pay the mechanical royalties directly to publishers, and some are operating under the mechanical blanket license, so that flows to the MLC. Video, again, we just talked about YouTube being one example of video. There's also other video platforms out there. Generally, when it comes to video, you need the right to perform the musical work publicly, and there are sync rights. This creates performance royalties and sync royalties, which are generally associated with sometimes with the ad revenue. Those royalties are paid out through PROs and then various rights administrators. So if you ever heard of a lot of independent distributors have a YouTube Content ID service, or that's one way of collecting those sync related royalties from YouTube and other platforms that deal with video. Those monies are paid out again to music publishers and writers. And lastly, broadcast radio, like your KISS FM or other types of broadcast channels, K-Rock and so forth, Power. When it comes to cover songs, there is still a right to perform publicly. So if you're an artist and you are on a radio show and you're performing live, there's a public performance right there. And if there's a CD or a track that a DJ is playing, there's a public performance right there. Those royalties flow to PROs and then again to the publishers and writers. This is another way of looking at the same information I just covered. So this was a chart that kind of shows you, based on the type of usage, what are the grants of rights associated with those usage, what are the royalties, and then how do they flow. This is showing you kind of a top-down look of how the royalties flow downwards or trickle down. You have musical works. Musical works is one copyright asset, which has two royalty streams. One is the performance royalty, which is associated with the public performance right, and then the mechanical royalty, which is associated with the right to reproduce and distribute. On the performance royalty side, for cover songs, those royalties flow down through PROs and then paid out in a publisher share and paid out in a writer share. Generally, it's 50-50 proportionate. On the mechanical side, we mentioned before that there's the blanket license, which is MLC's exclusive administrator of the blanket license. So mechanical royalties from DSPs from a blanket usage flows to the MLC. We pay out those mechanical shares to music publishers, songwriters, self-administered songwriters, meaning you don't have a publisher, and administrators. The voluntary license is the same thing as a blanket, direct license. So voluntary and direct license is basically the same thing. If a DSP has a direct license, then they will potentially pay directly to the music publishers or whoever they have the direct license with. And I also want to just mention here on the sound recording side, there is a mechanical royalty from the digital download that flows from download stores to your music distributor. And then the music distributor is then responsible for paying that mechanical royalties for downloads often to record labels or self-release artists, who then pays the songwriter or publisher. This chart is available on MLC's website under the resources page. And with that, I'm going to go ahead and invite back our guest speakers from Easy Song to cover songs in practice.
Okay, so I'm going to we're going to take what Patrick and Aaron were talking about and do some sort of real world examples. Scenario A, Kelly Sky records and releases digital only cover of a Rihanna song and makes a music video to upload to YouTube. What grants of rights and licenses does Kelly need? Now, assuming that she's not changing any lyrics and she's not using any sort of backing tracks or any of the original master recording, she's likely going to post her cover through a site like CD Baby, and for streaming and for digital downloads. Now for streaming, Kelly is not going to need to do anything because sites like Spotify, sites like Apple Music will handle that through the MLC. And so what she will need is a mechanical license for the downloads, which will cover her for sites like iTunes, where people can actually download the song. And then for her video for YouTube, as Erin mentioned, YouTube does have blanket licenses with a lot of major publishers. And Rihanna is a big artist, so she's probably with a major publisher that's handled through the blanket licensing. But if someone wanted full monetization, if someone wanted to guarantee that their video wouldn't get taken down, they should get a sync license, which is something that we can help with if you don't want to go directly to the publisher. Okay, and then scenario B is Hero Band records and releases a digital and physical cover of a Nirvana song. Hero Band performs the cover on tour in small music venues and posts a recording for their live performance to their YouTube channel. What grants of rights and licenses do Hero Band need? Now, for the digital release, it's going to work the same way as the Rihanna song. The MLC is going to help cover the streaming licenses, and then we can help with the digital downloads, or you can go directly to the publisher. And then as for performing on tour in the small venues, that'll be handled by PROs or performance rights organizations directly with the venue, most likely. But as Patrick mentioned, if that's not something that the venue handles, you can also go directly to ASCAP or BMI or CSAC. And then for YouTube, that also works the same way as with Kelly, where it might be handled by the blanket licenses, or you could also get a synchronization license directly through the publisher, or go through a third-party service such as us. And yeah, those are the two scenarios. So I'll hand it back to Dae.
All right, thank you so much. This has been great. Again, there's a lot of information that we had to try to cover in 60 minutes or 45 minutes really. And I see here our Q&A is loaded with questions. I think, I'm not sure if there's a way for us to export this. I'm going to tap my marketing team who's working in the background to see if there's a way to export the Q&A so that we can probably get to some of these after this webinar. If not, again, this webinar recording will be posted to YouTube, and you're welcome to ask questions on there. So we only have a few minutes left, but and we have at least 60 questions here in the queue, and I see questions still coming in the chat. By the way, the chat questions should be posted in our Q&A here. We've answered a number of questions throughout the duration of this conversation, but we'll go ahead and try to find a few that we can answer live in the last few minutes here. Okay, there is a question I'm going to go ahead and answer live. Michelle Schacht asked, giving permission requires a willing seller. How does a compulsory license qualify as giving permission? Erin, I see you said you already wanted to answer that.
Yeah, I actually just typed in this answer. Thanks, Michelle. So under U.S. compulsory law, if the original copyright has been released by the original recording artist, or it's a first release situation, a commercial release, it is automatically considered eligible for compulsory law. For example, about 20 minutes from our office, we're by Paisley Park, the famous Prince of our state. And so Prince, obviously, notorious for, just like other major artists, doesn't like derivative works, very tough to get permissions for, very expensive. If you wanted to cover a Prince song and release an audio-only product, private listening to the end user, no copyright alterations, yes, you are eligible to get what we call U.S. compulsory. This is like an automatic license. Now, again, audio-only product, you got to follow the guidelines that Mark and Tim were going over before, but you have to report it properly. You have to pay out the full statutory royalties. But by all means, yes, you can. You just can't change any words. You can't change the fundamental melody of the song. And Michelle, I just typed that in for you. So thanks for asking.
Thank you, Erin. Next question is from Alfred Hipkins, and any one of you can address this question. When I purchase a mechanical license, produce and sell a cover version for another performer to use, how does the performer know whether ASCAP, BMI, or CSAC performance license is required for the use of my production? Let me repeat that.
Yeah, repeat it one more time, Dae.
Sure. When I purchase a mechanical license and then produce and sell a cover version for another performer to use, how does the performer know whether ASCAP, BMI, or CSAC performance license is required for the use of my production? Well, I'll address this one because I think the wording may be a little fuzzy for me to understand exactly what you're asking, but I will address the fact that since you mentioned ASCAP, BMI, and CSAC and a performance license, two kind of things I want to leave the audience with is, number one, if you write a song, your original works should be registered with the societies in your territory for mechanical and performance. And I've already kind of went over those societies in the United States. A lot of you are tuning in from different countries, so you know the PRO in your territory and the mechanical society in your territory. So that's a general kind of rule of thumb, is when you write songs, you should make sure you register those works, because the societies are licensing those songs through kind of their versions of blanket licenses, and then collecting royalties and paying those to members. So in general, you need to register that. I would also probably address, and I'm not sure exactly if this is the question you have, but I'll address it anyway. If you do a cover song, do you have to register that song? The answer is generally no for the musical work, because you don't own the musical work. So if you do a cover song, even though doing creating a cover song in the United States and releasing it on a digital streaming service is covered by the blanket mechanical license that the MLC administers, you do not need to register your version of that cover song with us, because the copyright owner or through their publisher is going to register that musical work with us. And it's also that publisher and that copyright owner responsibility to associate that musical work to all known versions of sound recordings that are out there. So as a cover song artist, for example, if all you do is put out cover songs, you're not going to register the cover songs with a PRO or the MLC. You will, however, register the master sound recording to a service like Sound Exchange, because you may be earning royalties as the performer of your version. And I kind of glossed over that in the diagram that I showed you there, but the diagram is available on our website.
You might also want to register. You might also want to register your sound recording copyright with the United States Copyright Office, which is something we could help you with.
Dae, one more thing to answer their question. How do these PROs get contacted? So the venue owner who actually owns the stage, owns the property, they are liable to turn in a cue sheet to that PRO. They should have a blanket deal in place. Same thing with jukeboxes. Anytime compositions or master sound recordings are used live in public, and again, like Dave was saying, this would also have to be registered with ASCAP, BMI, CSAC here in the United States. If you're abroad and you're performing in, let's just say London, for example, that's PRS. That's their society that collects public performance rights, but it's called a cue sheet that owner needs to turn in, and that's a whole process. So yeah, I just wanted to add to that.
All right, thank you very much. So we've reached the end of the webinar, and I'm sad that we can't get to the other questions and Q&A here, but like I said, we will be posting a recording of this conversation on our YouTube channel. I would like to thank all of my panelists from Easy Song. Thank you for joining me on this conversation. It's been very informative. Again, we have a number of questions that still weren't able to get to, so feel free to shoot them to me. I'm also on Instagram. You can find me at Dae Bogan Music. So I don't mind continuing this conversation in the messaging on Instagram for me. And for everyone else, thank you for your time.
Thanks again.
Thanks, Dae.